It came from the third dimension with its own brain, its own voice, its own legs.
The 90s. A time of Pokemon cards, dial-up internet, and VHS tapes. It was the golden age of home consoles, with Nintendo leading the pack. But every empire has its awkward moments. Enter the Nintendo Virtual Boy. Released in 1995, this was Nintendo's big leap into the world of virtual reality. Or at least what they thought was virtual reality. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. And while it promised to take us into the third dimension, what we got instead was a headache. Literally. So, stretch your neck, grab your virtual reality passport, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe as we dive into the crazy misconception that was the Nintendo Virtual Boy. The Virtual Boy was developed by the legendary Gunpei Yokoi, the mastermind behind the Game Boy. You know, the one console you could trust to survive a nuclear explosion. Yokoi and his team wanted to take gaming to the next level, the third dimension to be exact, with a stereoscopic display that created an illusion of depth. Sounds pretty solid, right? Well, in theory, it was. But in practice, oh boy. Instead of the immersive VR headsets we imagine today, the Virtual Boy sat on the table stand like an oversized Viewmaster. Players had to hunch over and jam their faces in the thing just to play. Remember kids, if you thought VR was supposed to involve any kind of movement, think again! Your neck will quit long before your eyes do. And speaking of your eyes, the Virtual Boy's display was all red. Why? Well, because it was cheaper. And because apparently, Nintendo was fine with making what looked like a face-strapped demon hunter gadget thing. And the only place the device seemed to have any natural resting place was the dining room table, confining children to isolation in their dining rooms. If only our parents could have convinced us to virtually set the table too, then they would have been in the money. Okay. So Nintendo puts out this revolutionary device for the low price of $179.99. Sales started strong thanks to the hype and the massive $25 million marketing campaign.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Nintendo even threw a virtual day, which was a multi-city event where people could try the console before it hit the shelves. And people showed up. But did they stick around? Nope. Turns out, people weren't exactly clamoring to buy their own Virtual Boy. Even after renting it at Blockbuster for $9.95, where they even sweetened the deal with 2 games of your choice that came with a 3-day rental, and a $10 off coupon for your own console purchase. The irony in the new relationship between Blockbuster and Nintendo is that Nintendo once tried to sue Blockbuster to stop them from renting out video games altogether.
Yeah, they had us the first half, I'm not gonna lie. They had us.
Some of the all-red games that were available for the console were, for example, Mario Clash, where the player plays through 99 levels as Mario, jumping back and forth in multiple planes to defeat enemies as they were presented. Short in length, but praised for its fun gameplay, Virtual Boy Wario Land is a side-scrolling platformer starring Wario, who after doing some treasure hunting and vacation, found himself underground and has to work his way back. SD Gundam Dimension War is a tactical role-playing game based on the Japanese Gundam franchise, the super robots that inspired the American toy franchise Transformers. In the game, you have to move around a grid and defeat enemies and bosses without losing your fleet. Teleroboxer was a robot boxing game set in the future, and has been said by some to be up there as one of the best uses of the Vision Boy's telegraphic feature. In the game, you fight telerobots at the Telerobotics Championship, which was created after the Telerobots took off. Galactic Pinball makes use of the Virtual Boy's 3D features by placing you in the very red Milky Way galaxy as you play pinball from 4 different table types: Cosmic, Colony, UFO, and Alien. Despite claims that the Virtual Boy was like experiencing the game in real life. Gamers soon realized it was more like staring into a red abyss while their necks screamed for mercy. And the critics weren't kind either. Magazines like Nintendo Power, yes, even their own magazine, barely had anything super receptive to say. But hey, it was 3D. Kind of. So, what exactly went wrong? Well, for starters, the ergonomics. We've already touched on the fact that you had to contort yourself just to play. But the bigger issue? The games. The Virtual Boy launched with just 22 titles. Not exactly a stellar lineup. And none of the games were what we'd call system stellars. Only one Mario game? Where was Zelda? Or even Kirby? And don't even get me started on multiplayer. Well, in that regard, there was none. You couldn't even share the experience with your friends, because no one could see what you were playing. The Virtual Boy was like the ultimate forever alone console. Add to that, 1995 was the year of real VR hype. Books like Snow Crash and shows like VR Troopers had us thinking VR was the future. Even Sega was cooking up their own VR headset in 1991, which, surprise, surprise, never made it to market. Meanwhile, arcades were offering VR experiences that made the Virtual Boy look like a cheap gimmick. But was it a gimmick? Some say yes, others argue no. Sure, the Virtual Boy's stereoscopic tech was legit, but with all the false promises, it didn't stand a chance. The competition didn't help either. The PlayStation was on the scene, offering disc-based games with much better graphics. And then there was Microsoft with their new DirectX software for PC gaming. In short, the Virtual Boy didn't stand a chance. After less than a year in Japan, the Virtual Boy was pulled from shelves. In the West, it didn't last much longer. By the end of 1996, it was completely dead. Not exactly the comeback story Nintendo was hoping for. And to make matters worse, its failure hit Gunpei Yokoi hard. Shortly after, he left Nintendo. A sad end for one of gaming's greatest inventors. So, was the Virtual Boy ahead of its time? Or was it doomed from the start? Critics and fans alike are divided. I mean, can you even imagine the Nintendo Boy in today's market? No motion tracking, no color, no multiplayer, and pretty much no fun. But the story continues to still get interesting. Fast forward to today, and the Virtual Boy has developed a cult-like following. Collectors and modders are keeping the dream alive. They've even figured out how to add multiplayer functionality by hacking into the system's ports. What Nintendo abandoned, the fans took over. Because why wait for official support that's never coming when you got the internet, right? People have been fixing the Virtual Boy for years, proving once again that gamers will do anything to tinker with broken tech. Today, the Virtual Boy is more of a novelty than anything, but it does hold a small, if painful, place in the history of gaming. And for all its adults, it laid the groundwork for future 3D gaming, eventually leading to products like the Nintendo 3DS. And in April of 2024, Nintendo announced at IGN that it would be releasing a VR attachment for the Switch, with the name of Virtual Boy Pro. Is this Nintendo's proper step into the world of virtual reality, almost 30 years later? We can only hope so. So what can we learn from the Virtual Boy? Was it a failure of execution? A product of too much ambition? Maybe a little of both? It's a classic example of a company trying to innovate without really understanding what the gamers wanted, or what they could handle. Either way, it's an interesting chapter in gaming history, and it definitely wasn't the VR we were looking for.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
Thanks for watching this deep dive into the rise and fall of the Nintendo Virtual Boy. Have you ever heard of the Virtual Boy before today? Did you ever have one or knew someone that had one? What are your thoughts on the console? Let us know in the comments. And also, tell us what 80s, 90s, or 2000s toy, tech, or trend you want us to cover next. I'm Aaron, and thanks for watching RetroVault. Vises!